Welcome home, where faith and family meet. My name's Father Tim Donovan. I'm the parochial vicar here at St. Bonaventure Parish in Huntington Beach, and this is my co-host, Pam Hurwitz. Welcome.
Awesome. Thank you. Glad to be here.
November is upon us. Can you believe fall is finally here? But we live in California, so it's actually not here yet, right?
Yes. We think it's here. Okay. We're trying to make it here.
At least it's here in the decorations that I see around, which is nice. You know, I don't feel it so much in the weather some days. You
and
know,
the pumpkin spice Starbucks.
That's
and
right.
Yes.
The pumpkin spice everything.
Yes.
I made the other day some what was it? Butternut squash.
Oh,
I love butternut squash.
Yes.
A little butternut squash risotto. You know, I'm trying to make it feel like fall, even though it doesn't feel like fall. I haven't been able to put on my hoodie sweatshirt yet. It hasn't gotten cold enough, and I still want to put my shorts and sandals on during the day. So. We're getting there, though, you know? Yes. I think, but the fall is such a cool time. It's actually one of my favorite seasons. I know it's one of yours as well.
Definitely one of my too. And I like some of the images too of fall. Just of things falling away, And I was actually had some time away, and I had one of those moments when I was standing under a tree that actually had leaves, that beautiful, big, huge pile of leaves underneath. And just looking at that idea of things falling away. And in the midst of that, the branches, just new life, what's to come. But the idea of letting go of some of the old and trusting in the new to come. So I am a fall person, and I have all my decorations out. And I love also, we were just talking about the time change. And I actually am one of those freaky people also that likes it to get dark earlier. And it just feels good, like almost like you got to get home. You get to be home sooner. It feels sort of like. And
I feel like you're home longer too.
Yeah, it seems like that. I know. And so I'm really excited for the longer nights.
It's kind of interesting, like living in California, where we have maybe like, I thought we had 2 seasons, but I'm feeling like we have 1 season now, which is like the perpetual summer. And one of the difficulties for me, even like it folds over into my work life, is like, I never let anything fall away. Like I just keep adding things.
Yes.
Like one more thing, and nothing really falls away. Like nothing goes off and dies. And I need to work on being maybe more intentional about that, since there's really no natural flow of that right now. It's just like, how much more things can you add on,
Yeah.
Just can kind of get over. I know families are like that too, huh? It's just like sometimes it's just keep adding and adding and adding until it bursts or something in some place,
Yeah,
where we're so exhausted. And
families, like in a different climate, you think like some of the sports and some of the things, they actually have to kind of come inside, and they're not able to do those. So that also just, more time to gather, more time to kind of reconnect. And for our families, I mean, yes, we could be on the 405 with it sunny in between games every single day of the week. And so that we have to somehow be more intentional if we want those things to happen, because the seasons don't help us actually make that happen. So,
yeah, and I remember even just a couple of weeks back, we had that crazy rainstorm. You missed it, I think. Were you here for that?
Yeah,
you missed it. It was great. It came out of nowhere. It was like El Nino again.
I
like
heard.
Thunder, lightning, pouring rain. And it's funny because we pray for rain for ever in California, and then it comes and then we complain about it raining. It's just kind of like the feeling here in California. But I thought it was interesting, and many people were like, well, I wonder if my game's going to be rained out tomorrow. Like sometimes I put it in a little bit rejoicing, in that fact. Sometimes when I have something canceled and I can just spend some time in quiet and like letting down for a second, and intentionally scheduling that in is it's hard. Yeah. I've tried to do that in my own life. Like right after Mass in the morning, I try to go right back to the rectory and just spend that hour at least being quiet, praying, doing something where I can maybe just be quiet and stare at the walls with, and spend that time with the Lord. Because if I don't do that, if I jump right into my day, I'm like a crazy person the rest of the day. It's just like a nonstop running game till I get to 9:00 at night, and then I try to go to bed as fast as I can because it's because I know it's coming again tomorrow. So, but if I can get that small amount of time just to slow down, to be quiet, it changes the rest of the day for me.
One thing I have started too is kind of the flip is I've been doing that at the end of my day. And I decided to I'm so type A, so it's hard for me to really commit to anything day after day after day. But I decided to do this, to keep a journal of of ordinary moments, and I put it by my bed, and I had to actually really think about. So there's a corner that I have to turn before I get to my home every evening, and so when I turn there every evening, I kind of take a few minutes to go back through my day, and then I um, kind of think one thing that I want to remember from that day. And then at the end of the evening, I just write that down. And that too, because somehow, in the midst of so much, I've missed some of the richness of moments that happen, and just calling to mind moments from my day has really made me actually really much more present to God alive in my everyday life. And so it's hard to do, because stopping, and but if you can somehow weave that into something that you're regularly doing, it has. When I look back now on some of my entries, there are things that I just, when they were happening, I didn't think twice about them. But when I look back, I go, God, that was really cool. And um, I think about how God told Moses that he was on sacred ground. And, I guess that's what that's reminding me at that little practice of getting quiet, is that I am on sacred ground, and how I need to be more attuned to the way he's presenting himself and burning bushes through all different types of ways. So,
And it's that kind of just awareness that comes
yeah.
when we can stop for just a moment, even, and
Yeah.
invite the Holy Spirit to reveal those things to us
Yes.
throughout our day. And because I think when we stop, we can begin to hear his voice emerge in our hearts and the ways he's been speaking to us throughout the day.
Yes.
But if we never stop, we can kind of sometimes just not have an even moment to reflect. I forget who said this, but they said an unreflected life is, they said, a life not worth living. They
Yeah.
said
Oh, I
said that? I
saw
forget
that
that
recently,
quote
and
too.
it's someone good. I mean, yes, I also came across that recently, and I was same thing. I reread it, like I was like, okay, remember that, Pam. Remember that.
Yeah, life that's, an unreflected life is like a life not worth living, something
Yeah.
like that. And I was kind of struck by that myself because so much of my day is go, go, go. And I experience a lot of really intense things as a priest. Like I'm bedside with dying people like regularly. I'm with people in really intense life experience. I was just bedside of a family with an 18-year-old in a coma. And just moments like that where if we don't take the moment just to find God in the midst of it, it can become crushing. And maybe it's just the small struggles of our lives and the struggles of seeing God in the midst of it. But when we can slow down and we can reflect backwards, I hardly ever see God in the present moment
Yeah.
because I'm so concerned with managing it myself or something.
Yes.
But I only can come to see God when I reflect back.
Yeah.
When I stop and say, oh, whoa, like there he was.
Yeah.
He was there in all of that,
Yes.
and the pieces. And then, so I think that reflective attitude, and that's why I like it kind of getting dark a little earlier, can give me more time maybe to do that,
Yeah.
Sorry, I got to go inside. It's dark, or you spend that more time. Also waking up in the middle of the night is never a fun thing for me, especially when I have 6:30 mass in the morning. But that reflective piece, I think, is such an important invitation from the Lord, is to stop, to hear, to make a space where he can, involve us in his
And
life.
I hope that, if for families too, I think, that same, also just that idea of, how we hear God's voice and hear the voices of our family each day. And I think sometimes same thing when we're rushing and running and dropping, we might miss the sound of what was your day like today, and those chances to check in and the things that have been happening. And so, how hard that is, but how important that is. I've been talking a lot to families lately about just trying to be in the same room together, just to be in the same room together. And, whether that's at a table or in the car, however, and to somehow share pieces of your day, because we also, that's how we teach our kids. That's how we reflect on things. That's how we teach them about the life that they're living. And so that piece as well is, yeah.
It's been hard for me to stop as well in my own personal life. Like even sometimes I'll be sitting on my couch in my room or something with nothing particular to do, but I'll have my phone in my hands and just like racing across. And it's like this crazy amount of input of stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing all of these things, whether it's the news or Instagram or things, and I'm just racing through all this information. It's like, and then my mind is racing. I've just preloaded my mind with all this stuff, and then I go to lay down and pray or sit down and rest for a bit, and my mind's still going, and then my body's like, pull that phone out again. There's still more on Instagram. And you're like, shh. But it's almost, I don't want to call it an addiction, but there's definitely something going on there.
Yes.
Where it's it's a hindrance to being reflective. Because why do I want to be reflective when I can be, have so much input that's like so stimulating,
Yes.
My mind would rather that than to stop and to take in what I have received and what I've experienced in my day. It's interesting. I mean, the gospel this weekend, I think, is such an important reminder to us. Jesus is asked, what is the first most important, commandment? And he quotes back all the way back into the Old Testament. And he says, it's this Shema Israel, this hear, O Israel, that the Lord is God and he alone is Lord. And it says, love your God with all your heart, your mind, and your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And of course, Jesus gets the question right, he's Jesus, but it's so interesting that he didn't just leave the focus on just, love God with all your heart, your mind, your soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. But he included that Shema part, that hear, because I think a commandment is only as effective as our respect of the person giving it,
Yes.
And for God, like if we don't first hear his voice, to recognize that he's active in our lives, that he's not just some distant lawgiver that I'm going to reckon my life with at the end, But we have a God who's involved, like a God who's with us, an Emmanuel God, a God who's like in our lives. That type of God, then we'd want to hear his commands. That we'd want to love him with our whole heart and our mind and our strength and our neighbor as ourselves. But if I don't get quiet enough to hear that, to have a relationship with God, like whatever command he asks me doesn't really matter, because I don't care. That's what they say. They said, make sure, what is this? I think the quote is something like, make sure that they know you love them before you challenge them.
Okay.
And I think that's the same way with God. Like we have to have a relationship with God, and we have to experience his love and hear his voice in our lives before we're willing to go out and to sacrifice and to love others and to love him with everything in that way. So getting quiet is such an important part of that. Getting quiet ourselves, but getting quiet as a family too. How uncomfortable it is even during Mass. We just introduced some more silence where the church asks us to, like after the readings and stuff. And you can just kind of feel the room get uncomfortable when there's silence.
Yeah.
Like, or if you're there's a lull around a dinner table, even with my friends and stuff, they'll immediately pull out their phones and like quell the silence. It's like a disease we have of like this anti-silence piece,
Yeah.
I don't know if we're afraid to go there in our minds and our hearts silently, but I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's challenging.
And yet I find that when, and they're saying that, with this generation, especially of young people, and is just that, when we can allow ourselves to get comfortable in the silence, it is like contagious, addicting, whatever it is. It's like that our souls, that they are so restless, but when we can finally get them at rest, I mean, and we've had those moments when we've seen, been on retreats and seen, young people in front of the Blessed Sacrament. And it's like, that stillness, that returning, that listening, and we were made for that. We know the sound of his voice. We know the sound of his voice. And, but sometimes how do we quiet everything? And that's why too, that first commandment being so difficult, like to put God first, and I think, in this world too, we were made to worship something, and we just, there's so many choices. And yet when we get quiet and we hear, we know exactly who we were made to worship.
I love the new iPhone,
Okay.
iOS 12 has this thing where it tells you how much time you've spent on everything you've done on there in the last 12 hours. It tells you how many hours you spent, like on your social networks, on references or whatever, and upon productivity. I love that.
I saw that too on mine.
You saw that on it,
yeah.
And so it's I hate it because you're actually reminded of how much time you're spending on these things and how much time you're not spending maybe in prayer. What could I do with the amount of time that I had spent on these things? You know? For me though, it takes a long time to get quiet enough to hear God's voice again. Like I've noticed that I have to really like spend a half an hour just to get quiet enough to actually pray.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty crazy. Like that didn't used to happen in my life.
Yes.
Like
I agree.
I have to seriously take and just let the voices quiet down. I think so much stuff is running in our minds with so many responsibilities as ministers, but as parents, and we all have that, like these lists in our heads and these things. And we're in a construction project right now at my parish, and it's like you have to just manage all of these 100 things, but it's taking that time just to put that away, let those fall away for a little minute.
Yes.
A little couple minutes here, and just to say, okay, Lord, I'm with you here, you're with me, and I'm just going to spend this time like entering your presence. Because if we don't hear his voice, then we really have nothing to give back to him. Yeah. Like we have to first receive. I love that in 1 John, and it's always read at a lot of the weddings I do, is that, love consists of this, not that we have first loved God, but that God has first loved us. Mm-hmm. And so if we don't first receive that love, get quiet to hear his words of love spoken to us, speaking words of love to others is going to be near impossible, like to our family or our children or our spouses or my people. Like if I'm not hearing that myself, then I'm going to start getting snippy. And, if all I'm hearing in my mind is the news I read all day or the things like I'm not on vacation like that person or whatever it was, I'm going to get that way. But if I hear the voice of God, then I can share that because I'm being formed by the voices I'm hearing and by the example I'm being given.
I think I was sharing before, but, and it's just, this is not a realistic practice for many, many families, but I, we have a friend, Brad, and he, had told me about this practice that him and his wife have, in the mornings where they have these reading chairs and they start there in the day and they're, they have different things that they're, kind of working on, sharing together, whatever. But I think we all could say if we were able to have a half an hour to be quiet and to go inside ourselves and to start our days that way and invite God in. Invite God into our day. How much different the rest would be. But somehow just that discipline of doing that, and yet we are able to discipline ourselves to do all kinds of crazy things, but, and then, but when we do it and we, like for me, I was just on this trip and I really my phone just became a very backseat thing. And I just kind of really did not catch up on everything or whatever. And I found myself so much more aware and attentive to just to the people I was with and just to the world around me. And I found myself just throughout the day, like just really saying, God, you're good. You are really good. And maybe because I wasn't looking down all the time, I was looking up and out, that kind of, really changes our perspective. So.
Amen. Yeah.
Discipline. I don't know.
As you were saying that, I got convicted again. Like I've had these convictions from God, which I hate because I don't want to do them, but I feel like, they're there because he wants me to. But like I've had this conviction to actually get rid of my iPhone.
Okay. Oh.
Like and get like a flip phone.
Okay.
I actually looked into it. Yeah, I don't think you can buy them anymore.
Okay.
On main, like what is it, Verizon or whatever. But just like the freedom that would give me just to not have it in my pocket and be able to look at,
Yeah.
And to kind of simplify. Like I feel like that is the invitation to this generation, like to live simply.
Yeah.
And that's so hard.
Yeah.
Because all of these things are cool and they're good. I mean, iPhone's not a bad thing, and it makes me like very much more productive. But sometimes I wonder, like, is my life about productivity?
Yeah. Oh, and
or is my life about relationship?
No, and that's really, I was reading that the other day too, is that is somehow, when we talk to people about our lives and describe what's going on, like we feel like we have to be running at a pace, that's how we have worth, you know what I mean? Oh, well, this week I did this and this and I'm crazy and I'm da-da-da-da, and I find myself saying that often. And sometimes it's like, I want to just say it. So somebody says, I'm going to take that away. You're nuts, but then other times I do think it's, cause okay, I have worth, I'm busy, but it's busyness also, covers up emptiness and, so how, yeah.
Wow. Shoot, Pam, you're slaying me with busyness covers up emptiness. I'm gonna start crying over here. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the emptiness is coming from in our world too, is our this kind of endless pursuit in of escapism into content
Yeah.
rather than being quiet and getting intimate with the Lord, with each other,
Yeah.
and looking into each other's eyes, and and I've been craving that recently too. Like even last night, I just had random. We went to Korean food with my two brothers.
Okay.
Like that almost never happens. We'll eat dinner at Thursdays at home, but like for us to go out and hang out like
Okay.
outside, and it was
Good.
a cool experience. Like,
Yeah.
and we just
Yes.
like none of us were on our phones. Well, I guess a little bit to check some things, but we were like just in a relationship there, and it was really cool, and it was really nourishing my
Yeah.
soul and stuff. So that's why I want to invite people into that this fall.
Yeah.
To say like, what can I shed? Because if nature's not going to shed it for us, we have to make a decision to
Yeah.
shed it.
Yes.
What could we let die away maybe a little bit? And I'm gonna look into getting rid of my smartphone again. I every once in a while it comes up again, and I just need to make the leap and do it. And not worry about being productive.
And I think we have to, as parents, especially with this next generation. I mean, I think we really need to be in conversation about these phones. And we're just kind of like, I think that, it's like TV, like, at first people were like, how many hours can you watch TV? And then people sort of accepted like, okay, what can be on all the time or whatever. And, and the same thing with the phones. But I think we really have to, as parents, really be talking about, what is, how are we helping or not helping our kids, understand what those phones are. And, I feel like that's a critical conversation that parents you need to be having and thinking about. And I know for I with my own kids. I mean, they're young adults, but even I try to talk to them about because I see that this so easily can be an addiction and and take you away from kind of the reality of relationships in real life. So yeah.
I have some friends who had a practice of they would go to dinner with each other, and they'd all put their phones in the middle of the table
Yeah.
and
Okay.
face down.
Okay.
And so they would be like, buzzing or whatever
Yeah.
during the dinner. And the first person to pick up the phone, guess what they had to do?
What?
They had to pay for dinner.
Oh, nice. Nice.
So that was kind of the incentive
Yes.
to do that.
Yes.
So if I had to check my phone,
Yes.
I had to then pay for dinner for everyone. And if no one checked their phone, then they would split it or whatever. But I was like, that's good.
Yeah.
Like that's accountable. And maybe if we could do that, maybe like whoever picks up their phone has to do the dishes
Again.
at dinner or whatever. I mean, for having dinner, hopefully with each other, but something like that where we could just like provide an incentive to be quiet with each other, to be in intentional conversations with each other.
Yeah.
One of the other things that happens in November is we remember the dead.
Yes.
We remember our ancestors, remember the generations of people who have gone before us that have decided to say yes to life.
Yes.
To say yes to
Yes.
God's invitation to bring life into the world and to nurture it and to nurture us, and remembering our grandparents, our parents, great grandparents, all the way back, even people we don't remember that we've never met maybe,
Yes.
but that are part of our lineage, that
Yeah.
are in us. I mean, like I still feel Irish because of the Irish people
Yeah.
who are in me, and that kind of thing. It's like, no, that's like in our blood sometimes, is passed down this way. And I think it's a very important month to remember the gift that they were, to get quiet too enough to recognize the gift that they were, to thank God for that.
Yeah.
And then maybe also to use this month as an opportunity to maybe heal some of the generational wounds that maybe have come to.
Yes.
All of our families have the wounded baggage that gets carried along generation to generation. But when we can remember and then invite God into that part of our lives, and maybe sometimes when we remember our past or our relatives, there may not be always the best of memories there,
Yes,
in our
yes.
lives, but we can invite God into that and
And
to
I
redeem.
I've talked to families a lot about this idea of All Souls Day and maybe just building a little altar in your home, for a few days there. And the Hispanics, I think they really get it right with this idea of Day of the Dead, and they really they really do. They construct these altars. They actually, you'll see them too. I mean, it's so beautiful seeing people at cemeteries, eat with putting out the food that those people love, sitting and telling the stories, and that we can do that. We can, maybe bring out pictures of those who have passed before us, set up a little area, and talk about, especially in the ways of faith. We all as parents and as people, we know the people who really called us into knowing Jesus, and to tell, those stories of great grandma, um and share those with our kids. My Both of my kids had to do a project for school, and we bring that out every November, and I set it out, and it was just like storytelling, this folklore, and they had to go back and they had to interview people, and some of those people are gone now, and we kind of look back at some of these pages, and um, I it's critical. It's critical for us to look back and learn from, and share those stories. And those stories mean a ton to the current generation. I think they really, sometimes, even if they're blowing you off and seeming like blah 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 blah, blah, they are really taking those in, and they will repeat those stories someday too. So
Knowing our past helps us to know who we are as well.
yes, yes,
Like they
yes,
say the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. I mean,
yes,
we are a product of the people who have gone before us, in that way. And when we can understand ourselves better, the saints say that after grace, the best help in the Christian life is self-knowledge, knowing who we are. No, of
yeah,
course, knowing who God is, and kind of that meeting place in between. And when we can stop, we can hear the stories too.
yeah,
And I think and when we hear the story, when we know where we're from, there's this great like foundation of identity formed, I found. Even my own identity crisis in my 20s, as all the 20-year-olds these days go through, kind of re-cementing it like in my own, like I kind of went on this like Irish kick for a bit, and I'm like, but it was good for me because I was able to identify with that root of my family and my life and the German piece, and understanding what the good, the bad, the ugly that comes with that,
yes,
and knowing
yes,
myself in a better way. I was able to really put good foundation. I'm not just like somebody floating along. Like I have a family.
yes,
Like I have people I'm from, I
yes,
have a
yes.
place, and ultimately
Tribe.
like a tribe. Yeah. And ultimately, like being Catholics though, is even deeper than that.
Yeah.
Like we have
Yes.
a family of God,
Yes.
which is the
Yes.
church, and which is our families of faith, and knowing that we have a eternal home as well.
Yeah.
When we look back, we're also in a way looking into the future as well, of what is for us in the relationship with all those people that have gone before us as well.
And with All Saints Day too, I mean, we all are in this process of trying to become saints. And I think, sometimes the lives of the saints are beautiful, but and so rich, but maybe sometimes they might still seem a long time ago or disconnected. But yet I think as we tell those stories of our own family who, pursued their faith and made sacrifices. I mean, those people were also being sanctified, and we know everyday saints. I mean, we've been affected. We walk in the footsteps of everyday saints in our families. That's how we've, come to be who we are, and how we, how we have, most of us, the faith isn't something we just came upon one more. I mean, it was passed down by people and people that made sacrifices. And I love, hearing the stories of, my grandma, and just it's had a big impact on me. And she was kind of a matriarch and in our family, and in her faith. And I love being reminded of the things that she did as as a wife and as a mother. And I find myself many times emulating and some of those things in my own home. So it's good to remember.
Amen. I was a priest I was with the other day. He said sanctity in this generation is not going to be about extraordinary things, but it's going to be about doing ordinary things, with great love.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important to be reminded of on All Saints Day as well. Like that God's calling all of us just to do these ordinary things of our everyday life with great love. I think that's like the miracle of the wedding at Cana, really. He's taking these ordinary things, water, and when they encounter Jesus, they turn into wine.
Yeah.
They turn into extraordinary things. They're the everyday things of caring for our kids, of providing for our families, of doing something that goes above and beyond, or just little things that we do every day, but doing them with greater love, greater intentionality, greater reflection. I think is really the path to sainthood
Yeah.
in today's world. And so we pray for our families, that our families will be whole saint families, huh?
Yes.
Canonize entire families. That's one of my prayers.
Oh, I
is
love that.
Like, and there are families,
Yes.
I mean, Teresa of Lisieux, right? She had her mom and dad are both saints. I don't know if any of her brothers and sisters are or not. We'll probably, someone will let me know. But yeah, and just to intercede with them as well. And the Holy Family, obviously, right?
Yes.
And all the examples of family, but also to ask our relatives to intercede for us who have gone before us.
Yeah.
Hopefully God willing, and to pray for their repose. But they're in heaven, they're saints as well.
Yes.
Small as saints.
Yes.
But they're to intercede for us to, because they know where we've been through.
Yeah.
They know where we're from.
Yes.
And they can help us to go forward as well. So.
And I find myself many times calling on, my aunt, my grandma, my grandfather, in those ways, knowing, like you said, that they know who we are, and kind of uniting my story to theirs, and and asking them, plead for me, you're up there, sit with them, tell them, so yeah, we have, and so don't miss it. Don't miss November, the beginning here, because obviously we have Halloween, and that'll just be crazy, wonderful, fun, and but those next 2 days afterwards, they really give us opportunities as families to talk about things like sainthood and what that looks like, and how we're trying as families to encourage that and to make each other holy. Like, that's a job we have in our homes, and then also All Souls Day, and just to talk about the people that have come before and tell those stories and share those with our kids. So don't miss it, because November gives us a couple time, come inside, get quiet, take some time, turn off the phones, and tell those stories.